What if you tried to open the Nintendo eShop on the 3DS and Wii U after it closed? First off, on my 3DS, I selected the eShop and it actually opened up, which is pretty odd. The eShop looked pretty different. Now the menu has no games or categories of types of games. I selected Nintendo Selects and every game I saw has a sentence saying this software is currently unavailable. Now the Wii U. I went to the eShop, but like with the 3DS, the Wii U has no games or categories of games. This is a big flaw that Nintendo made with the GameCube. So we all know the GameCube is a cube, but actually it isn't. Even though the name, it isn't a cube. Each square face of a cube needs to have the same length and size. If we look at the GameCube dimensions, each square face has a different length and size. The height is 110mm, the width is 150mm, and the depth is 161mm. So now on, I will call the GameCube GameCuboid. Every role in Among Us ranked. 6. Guardian Angel. Guardian Angels can protect people from the imposter. Hopeful, but you can't interact with anyone, report, hit the emergency button, vote, and communicate with anyone, which isn't good. 5. Normal crewmate. This is the most bland role. The crewmate doesn't have any special abilities like the guardian angel, scientist, or engineer. 4. Scientist. This is a type of crewmate that can see vitals of people and track if they are alive or not, which is really cool. 3. Engineer. This is the best role for a crewmate. You can vent like the imposter. By this, you can get around the map quickly. 2. Shapeshifter. This role is too OP. You can win so easily by framing people if you get Shapeshifter. It can get boring sometimes, but this role was desired by a lot of people and is loved by people. 1. Imposter. The imposter is so fun to play as. You sabotage the area and take out other players. This is the best role in the game. So I got a very interesting comment on my GameCuboid short saying, but if you have the Game Boy player attached, will that make it a cube? Thank you, Revenger, for the comment. So we know the GameCube's dimensions are 110mm for height, 150mm for width, and the depth is 161mm. The Game Boy player is 57mm in height, 150mm for width, and 161mm in depth. So the GameCube with the Game Boy player would be 167mm in height, 150mm in width, and 161mm in depth. It's still not a cube, but it's closer to being one. This is a cool Easter egg that the GameCube had. If you speed up the GameCube's menu music, it'll sound very familiar. This is a myth in Pokemon Red and Blue. There's an area near the SS Anne that has a truck. This truck is very difficult and takes time to get to. You'll need to have Surf while the SS Anne is still here. Because of this difficulty and time it takes to get there, people think Mew's under the truck, and you'll need to use Strength on it. It was a huge rumor and myth throughout the Pokemon community, but of course, later on, it was proven false. Subscribe. This short is recorded with a 3DS. Look at this plant. Oh, the stone path. This is some quality YouTube right here. I love these rocks. How cool. The final thing I'm going to show is this really cool rock. Wow. Now with that concludes this quality amazing short. This is a 3DS secret you should know. If you have a Game Boy game, hover over the game on the menu and push select. Then go into the game and there should be the screen on a Game Boy console displayed. This also works on Game Boy Color games. Subscribe.
Using DS Personal Trainer Cooking to make food. My whole video game collection in under 60 seconds.
I'm going to rank every Nintendo console startup screen. Sonic Superstars is going to be the next Sonic game. The background and the stage itself are well made with the artistic visuals. Thank goodness this game isn't a retro 16-bit game like Mania and Origins. Whoever made the art and level designs of these zones deserves a cake for their amazing effort, and we get to see that there is a 4-player multiplayer. This would be amazing playing with family or friends. There are power and abilities that Sonic can obtain which can make for some interesting gimmicks and different ways to play the game. Superstars seems like it is going to be a fun game with artistic design, powers, abilities, characters, and villains. This is an insane glitch in Super Mario World used for speedruns. In Yoshi's Island 2, collect this red shell and defeat this one Koopa. Hit the question blocks with the red shell, the Yoshi egg will be duplicated. Get on the Yoshi, eat this Koopa, spit out the fire then. Eat this Koopa and spit out the shell at the right time so the fire can hit it so it can turn into a coin. Try to eat it with Yoshi, get it off Yoshi, and collect it before he eats it. This manipulates and changes the code of the game, and it should teleport you to the end of the game. Keep in mind that you have to be time precise, have pixel perfect movements to pull off this glitch. Also, you have to have 4 controllers plugged in with the Super Multi-Tap, with different inputs taped in on each of the 3 controllers. Subscribe so I can get to 100 subs by the end of the year. This is a secret about the DS you should know. Do you know how the DS goes into sleep mode when you close it? There's a magnet in the console, and when it comes in contact with the sensor, the DS goes into sleep mode. You can make the DS go into sleep mode without closing it. If you have a magnet, put it near the sensor near the top right of the bottom half of the console. Then the DS should turn off. Subscribe so I can get to 100 subs by the end of the year. How to know when your DS was made. Insert a cartridge into your DS and then turn it on and then go into Pickle Chat. After, take out the cartridge. If it freezes, you have the earliest model. If the screen turns to a blue one, then you have the second revision. Green, third, yellow, fourth revision, pink, fifth revision, and if you get a dark blue screen, then you have the final revision. It looks like I have the final revision. Subscribe so I can get to 100 subs by the end of the year. What does the DSi actually stand for? Many people say that the DS stands for dual screen because it has 2 screens, and others say that it stands for developer system because it's very easy for developers to create concepts for games because of the 2-screen design. The I could stand for 2 things also. I, as it is your own system, or that it has eyes that mean cameras since the DSi has cameras. There are so many possible answers. Subscribe so I can get to 100 subs by the end of the year. A 3DS secret that you didn't know. If you want to play a DS game on your 3DS without blur or a mediocre resolution, push start and select while launching a DS game. Then the game will be in its regular original DS resolution. Subscribe so I can get to 100 subs by the end of the year. What happens when you play your DS during your birthday? When you boot up your DS, it will play a unique jingle. And if you go into Pickle Chat, it will say today is your birthday, and we'll play a jingle too. Subscribe so I can get to 100 subs by the end of the year. A cool 3DS feature you didn't know. If you blow into your 3DS or rotate the stylus in the hole where it goes, the icon on the menu will spin. Subscribe so I can get to 500 subs by the end of the year. This is an interesting secret that the 3DS has. If you put your 3DS in front of a wall while in 3D mode, it will project lights in a striped pattern. This is because of the parallax barrier. How it works is that the parallax barrier has columns in front of more columns. Some of these columns are meant for the left eye, and some are meant for the right eye. This causes a 3D effect. Subscribe so I can get to 500 subs by the end of the year. Darth Nihilus became one of the most feared and scariest Sith Lords to ever exist. He kept feeding on Force energy. Darth Nihilus sucked life force from entire civilizations and even planets, making him very dangerous. Along with Force Drain, he became skilled in Dark Rage, Farsight, and Force Lightning. Darth Nihilus could also see people on locations through Force visions. He was skilled in lightsaber dueling and combat, specifically learning and was skilled in the lightsaber's forms, the Way of the Black Hand. Darth Revan throughout his time was very powerful in the Force. He possesses high agility, speed, and strength from the Force. He was skilled in Force sense and could even predict the future. He could heal himself through the Force and even resist poison. He had very powerful Force lightning and could even create devastating, dangerous Force storms. Finally, he mastered lightsaber forms 4 and 5, Ataro and Chien. Even though his permanent life-affecting injuries, Darth Vader was a beast. He mastered Form 5, a lightsaber form GM's Show and Chien, and was one of the most talented lightsaber duelists. His power of the Force is very powerful too. He's the being with the highest midi-chlorian count of all time, so he is very connected and strong with the Force. His telekinesis, grips, and pulls are impressive too, being able to grip ships from taking off and even stopping an AT-AT Walker Lake. If that wasn't enough, he held back a large chunk of the ocean. Vader is probably one of the best at Force telekinesis. Darth Vader may have injuries that affect him in a lot of ways, but again, he was a beast with his lightsaber dueling, Force power, and abilities. Through the dark side, he wiped out the whole planet and absorbed the life force of everybody on it. This made him immortal and even more powerful. After, he was the new Sith Emperor. Throughout his life, he was very good at telepathic powers. He was able to take over people's minds and even destroy them. An example of this is him taking over children's minds and making them his warriors. He was also very dangerous, from Force Lightning even being able to create Force Storms. Like Nihilus, he could also drain life force and even knowledge out of beings. Making him more dangerous, he finally was very proficient in lightsaber forms 7, Duo, and Vapod. Darth Sidious managed to learn and master all the lightsaber forms. Palpatine had Force abilities such as Force Flight, Force Barrier, Force Strain, Force Rage, Force Hero, Force Cloak, Force Storm, and his iconic Force Lightning. In canon, he was even able to transfer his consciousness to a clone of his body. Finally, George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, the main man himself, says that Sidious is the strongest and most powerful Sith ever. Today we're going to talk about rumors and speculations about the upcoming Nintendo console. And on average, a Nintendo console's life is 5 or 6 years before another one is released. N64 to GameCube, 5 years, GameCube to Wii, 5 years, Wii to Wii U, 6 years. A new one getting released is overdue, so 2024 or 2025 is probably going to be. Now let's talk about predictions on the sequel to the Switch. People think this new console will be a sequel to the Switch. A lot of websites say that there will be a storage, display, and graphic upgrade. Also, it will be compatible with the first Nintendo Switch library. Also, you will be able to transfer data from the OG Switch to your new Switch. The price. People think that the upcoming console would cost around the same price as the OLED Switch, around $350. Subscribe so I can get to 500 subs by the end of the year. So I recently got my very first Game Boy game, Mary Kay and Ashley Pocket Planner. Picked it up at my Entertain Mart. It was like the only Game Boy game there. I have a Game Boy Advance right here, and luckily original Game Boy games are compatible with the Advance models. Boot it up. Kay and Ashley Pocket Planner. Welcome. The very first thing we need to do is set the correct date and time. Name, select OK to enter your name. I don't think I would. I'm skipping. We will try to guess your city. This game's creepy.
I'm in danger!
I know where you live.
Crush indicator. In your Game Boy, press scan. It's a match. Ask Ashley. Ask a question. Will this channel have more than 1,000 subscribers someday? Liar! Subscribe so I can get to 500 subs by the end of the year. Top 5 most powerful Sith. He kept feeding on Force energy. Darth Nihilus sucked life force from entire civilizations and even planets, making him very dangerous. Darth Revan. He was skilled in Force sense and could even predict the future. He could heal himself through the Force and even resist poison. He had very powerful force lightning. Darth Vader. Darth Vader was a beast. He mastered Form 5, a lightsaber form GM's show. His telekinesis, grips, and pulls are impressive too, being able to grip ships from taking off and even stopping an AT-AT walker. Darth Vitiate. Through the dark side, he wiped out the whole planet and absorbed the life force of everybody on it. He was able to take over people's minds and even destroy them. Darth Sidious. The most powerful Sith ever is Darth Sidious. Darth Sidious managed to learn and master all the lightsaber forms. George Lucas says that Sidious is the strongest and most powerful Sith.
Subscribe so I can get to 500 subs by the end of the year.
My first experience with Super Mario Bros. Wonder. When I was at my local GameStop, I chose to play the demo of Mario Wonder, and if I had to be honest, it was spectacular and so fun. At the beginning, the demo gives you an option between 12 whole characters. Keep in mind, this is a mainline Mario game, a 2D one in fact, and has this many characters to choose from. That's unbelievable. They included Daisy and even Yoshi in many color variations. I went with Green Yoshi, and then the demo brought me to the map, specifically World 1 Pipe Rock Plateau. I began the first level, and it was a fun experience. I noticed that I could flutter with Yoshi. The physics and movements were smooth and overall a great experience. And obviously, we have to talk about the new style. It's so artistic, unique, and new, with the bright colors and details. I can't wait until this game comes out. Subscribe so I could get to 500 subs by the end of the year. Ranking every Nintendo Switch Joy-Con stance. First off, we have the Joy-Con grip stance. This stance is comfortable because the grip you connect the Joy-Cons to make it more comfortable to hold and play for a long period of time, unlike other stances. S tier. The two Joy-Con disconnected stance. A good stance to play with if you want to be more effective and benefit in motion controls, but this stance could get uncomfortable after a period of time. A tier. Two Joy-Cons connected to the Switch. This is an A tier. This stance is awesome for taking your Switch on the go, but it can get uncomfortable after a period of time like the last one. My hands start hurting, but that's only after a very long time of playing. Overall, a great stance. A tier. One vertical Joy-Con stance. D tier. You'll use this barely or almost none of the time. Horizontal stance. This position has a lack of inputs and gets very uncomfortable after a long time, but it will serve you well and you can live with it for just multiplayer on the go. C tier. Did you know that the Virtual Boy and the 3DS weren't the first Nintendo gaming systems to have 3D? All the way back in the Famicom era, Nintendo manufactured and released these 3D goggles called the Famicom 3D system. You would have plugged these goggles into the Famicom and then wear them to play a certain library of Famicom games in 3D. It was an impressive piece of technology to come out around that time. Sadly, the system sold a poor amount of units and was a massive failure. Still a fascinating part of history for Nintendo. Subscribe so we can get to 500 subs by the end of the year. Today, I've generated numerous Nintendo-related items such as consoles and characters with AI. When entering the Nintendo Entertainment System, or the NES, it gave me this. What is this? It looks like an SNES and two Nintendo Switches combined. Next, I did the SNES, and again, it looked nothing like it. It's a huge bulky gaming console with buttons on the front and the top, and this part looks like where you would insert a cartridge. Game Boy Advance. It looks more like an original Game Boy than an Advance. Donkey Kong. What is this? This looks amazing. He almost looks exactly like him. Kirby. This is something that would be in my nightmares. I mean, it's 1,000 times better, but where are the arms? And those feet are just gross and So I recently got my very own Nintendo DSi XL. This is probably one of my favorite DS models. It's so big, it's very comfortable to hold. You can play this for an amount of time. And also, you can download games on it. Well, you used to, but it was a very cool feature back then. Too bad they got rid of it. Also, there's a built-in camera for the DS. I mean, even though the photo quality was bad, it still impressed a lot of people back then and was still a cool, fun feature to play with the DS. Another memorable thing was Nintendo DSi Sound. You can record your own sounds and you can play them back in a different way. And you can't forget the photo clock, so iconic. Brain Age was a classic. Subscribe so I can get to 300 subs by the end of the year. The first and final model of the DS compared. So the first DS was very bulky. Meanwhile, with the DSi XL, it's more skinny, and it was just smoother and flatter all around. The hinge is in the middle with the first model, but the hinges on the DSi, one's on the left and one's on the right. DSi XL has bigger screens than the DS. And also the button placements are different, with the power button being in the bottom, while with the DS having the power button in the top left. DS has select and start in the top right, while the DSi has that in the bottom right. Two very different menu screens, I would say. And the DSi used to have downloadable software, while the DS did not. Subscribe so I can get to 300 subs by the end of the year.